Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a lovely day. We've seen some pretty strong storms lately. I hope wherever you are, you're safe. Thank you for joining me here today, and I look forward to our session. So, today we're going to talk about technology, digital learning, and the evolution in technology and digital learning. Recent technological advancements, especially since the pandemic, have been fascinating. But there are some downsides, or more likely certain elements we have to be careful of and mindful of, especially in contemporary times. We will discuss some of these elements today. In addition, we will address two problems that I identified in online learning and possible solutions. Finally, we're going to talk about technology literacy. First, let's start by talking a little bit about technology and the rapid acceleration that we've seen, especially today, well, since the beginning of the pandemic. Now, we live in the digital age, also known as the information age and the computer age. On the one hand, we are very lucky that we no longer have to physically travel to go to libraries, hunt down rare books while doing research. Not giving away my age here because that was my whole college experience where I actually had to go to the library to find information because for the longest time we actually did not have such a thing called the internet, which is a blessing for us today. I spent several nights in the library cramming for exams, writing assignments, and having internet at home just was not a thing yet. On the other hand, the digital age curses us with an abundance of information. Everything is out there, but there's so much that information literacy skills are more important than ever before. We have everything at the tip of our fingers, on our phones, tablets, computers. We shop online, even grocery shopping at times. We go to school online. We do banking online. It is safe to say that we have experienced a very rapid technological advancement over the last 5 years or so, again, due to the pandemic, forcing technology to become the center of our lives. Now, being connected is a matter of individuals being distant from one another and needing a connection. Since most of us started to use smartphones, we started living very close to our devices. These devices are the first thing that we look at each morning and the last thing we see before we sleep. Also considering that many of us don't even own traditional alarm clocks anymore, but use our devices to wake up in the morning. So it's next to your bedside, and as soon as it rings, you pick it up, and that's the first thing that you see every morning. Technology has started to link people, families, friends, communities, and the world. It's safe to say that we've become a small global space. I'm able to easily stay in touch with my family and my friends on social media. I can see all the good life changes, everything that happens. I can share pictures and they can follow what's going on in my life. Like I said, we share pictures, we write about our experiences, we follow one another, and we get to see so many moments that we would not have seen otherwise. Of course, we must keep in mind that people usually share the good moments, and can we really trust what we're seeing online? Is that really the life of the people that we're seeing, or is it just a show that we're seeing on social media? So again, here we require some information literacy skills on social media. The pandemic is the main reason why technology advanced so rapidly over the past 5 or 6 years. Around the beginning of the pandemic, almost everyone was sent home. I remember, I think it was one day in March, we were in the office and it was said that there was a rumor that we were going to be remote for a while. I laughed and I didn't take this seriously. I was like, how bad can it be? We will be back in a few weeks tops. Little did I know, we were home for around 18 months before we came back to our offices on campus. My cat is really trying to be part of this presentation, so if she stops meowing at any time, I apologize. So during the time we were all at home, social life was limited. Practically all our work at school moved online. The data I have access to through my workplace shows that an increase in enrollment during the pandemic has actually happened. One assumption could be that people had more time on their hands, they were able to attend school or continue their education. And given the circumstances, we can infer that self-directed learning became even more emphasized at that time. The use of social media may have increased with people trying to connect to the ones that they couldn't physically meet with anymore. In addition, software we never used in our personal homes before was now something that we all had on our phones, tablets, and computers, such as Zoom, Teams, Fuse. These all became means for social gathering. It became impossible to live outside of technology. So before we move on to talking about digital education, I would like to take you with me on a journey. I'll talk a little bit about my personal experience. I'm sure you can relate to this. We also talked about this in this week's discussion, but I feel like this is a safe, this is a space where it's a good point to refer to. A self-reflection is necessary regarding technology at this time to kind of follow how technology has advanced over time. So my personal journey with technology actually started at a very early age. I've always been a very curious child, and I've always been fascinated with gadgets. And I would take apart things at home just to see the inside and assemble them and put them back together. So people didn't have computers in their own homes, in their own private homes yet. The internet was not a thing yet. I think I was in high school when I first read an article about the internet, and I remember that I couldn't even imagine what it would be like. I first saw the internet on the American military base in Konya, Turkey, around, I guess it was 1993. My mom was a teacher, and she worked for a school that sent over teachers to the base to teach the children of the military families. And in exchange, we got access to everything on the base, such as the marketplace. And a lot of Western products at that time were banned in the country, such as like instant coffee, breakfast cereals, M&Ms. And we had the privilege to shop in the market. I mean, M&Ms, come on, that's like a dream of every child at that point. They had just installed a new computer lab, and there was internet access. And I remember going down the rabbit hole on the internet for hours and hours waiting for mom to enter a class. It was fascinating. Nonetheless, it was not even close to what it is today. It was so slow. In 1994, I enrolled in college. And in my college, there was also a computer lab where there was internet access. That year, we also bought our first PC, which was an IBM with a square hard drive and an Epson printer that made so much noise, the whole building shook when it worked. The computer turned on in Windows 3.1, and it opened in DOS. Floppy disks were where we saved our assignments, and they would often just crash for no reason. A few years later, we got dial-up connections in our houses, and CD technology advanced. We moved from floppy disk usage to CD, which was much better on the assignments, trust me. In addition, we stopped listening to cassettes because we could now listen to CDs, which did not break as often as cassettes did. And I remember saving up for a Sony Discman so I could listen to it while I was on daily walks. When I moved to the US to pursue my master's degree, to call my parents, I had to buy a calling card. So today, almost everything that was science fiction in the past is actually our reality. We read books electronically, although I'm quite guilty of having my own personal library at home because I'm pretty addicted to my physical paper books, and I'm pretty proud of my library, actually. We go to school online, which makes it possible to work full-time and go to school simultaneously. In addition, it's possible to FaceTime our family. We can use WhatsApp, we can use Apple products, and no longer prepaid cards. They're not necessary. I probably wouldn't even know where to buy one these days. Social media lets us keep in touch with friends and family globally. But as I said earlier, I found technology to be fascinating. I never considered technology to be a challenge, and new technology actually excites me. I've always been very curious, and I make it a point to learn whatever is new, whatever is out there. I'm very open to change. I have to add here, though, AI is the one issue that scares me, as I mentioned in our discussion board this week. It could be taken too far. I'm not sure, maybe because it's just too new. I guess the only way to know the outcome is to wait and see what the future is going to bring. So what about education? Online education had been becoming increasingly popular before the pandemic, and research was being conducted on the virtual learning component. Previously, research had showed that the majority of learners online were adult learners. I have to be honest here, I have not looked at current data, but it would be very interesting to see the data since the pandemic and whether or not there's been a change in the profile of the learners since the pandemic. The University of Phoenix was probably one of the first examples in higher education where the education provided was strictly online and asynchronous, meaning it was dependent on self-directed learning on the student's end. I remember that many of us initially were skeptical regarding this change in education. Few other institutions had been following this model soon after. Several institutions started to create certification programs as well. This new model provided opportunities to those who had full-time jobs and found it very challenging to attend in-person classes. Also, it was new territory for individuals who could not travel to different areas or or afford to live in different areas around the world, but had the chance to choose from various schools in multiple places without going there. With the effects of the pandemic, we experienced a significant technological development in online education, and this became our new normal. Even today, although we're no longer in the pandemic era, our perspective towards online education has probably changed a great deal. For example, I was working full-time when I was working on my master's degree, and it was pretty challenging to take time off to go to in-person classes. I'm still working full-time, but it is a blessing to be able to attend a doctoral program online that I can work on at my own pace. However, such programs require additional self-discipline as adult learners, and we must be independent learners to be able to succeed. I would argue that online education is not easier in any way, if not harder. Since the pandemic, we're back in the classroom mostly, but the normal is not the normal that we knew as it was before. The system has become mostly hybrid, at least at my institution, and while we have in-person students, we also have a space where there are synchronous and virtual students who, for what reason or another, opt out of being in person. Classroom management has become really challenging. Thinking about my own classes, this is a challenge that I've been facing in my classroom as well. So this is one of the problems that I would identify here. Our traditional teaching methods work on in-person students, but how do we also get virtual students to be engaged without forgetting that they're there, especially if they keep their cameras off or they're too timid to raise their voice or ask questions when a conversation is taking place in the physical classroom and they're virtual. So the solution that I recommend here, at least for the time being, it may be a band-aid solution, but until we're a little more adequate in this area, is to separate the virtual students and the in-person students and have two different models rather than a hybrid model. I feel like this, at least for the time being, this is something that would work much better. In the meantime, updating our teaching methods and following up on new and more contemporary literature is essential. Once again, I apologize for my cat. I think she thinks that I'm lecturing her, so she's really trying to be part of the conversation. So I would identify the second problem in online learning in today's system as information literacy. I feel like this is an important one that we need to tackle. As discussed earlier, we have everything we need at the tip of our fingers, but what do we use? How do we process this information? How do we vet this information, especially in a formal education setting? So, for example, we talked about educational blogs this week. I have actually had several students submit assignments where they referenced blogs or educational blogs. I find this problematic. Blogs are spaces where individuals write about their personal experiences and their self-reflections. On the one hand, they can be very beneficial to read because you can follow different experiences and you can read about various perspectives, but on the other, and they can be quite interesting, but on the other, they are very subjective spaces. So just like anywhere else on the internet, one has to be very careful about this information. Our information literacy and media literacy skills while processing information must be strong. We need to vet information as we take it in and process it. Fact checking is crucial in this sense, Blogs are indeed problematic, as like I said, they're personal, subjective spaces. While one blog may be written academically and professionally, another may be a subjective interpretation written quite informally, as writing professionally and academically is not mandatory when you're writing a blog. It's not the rules of writing a blog. A blog can be written in any manner. No matter how they're written, though, it's problematic that it is a personal and subjective space, and the information would require additional checking compared to reading a journal article or looking up research that was professionally reviewed. Blogs may be places to find interesting information, but we have to be extra careful. So I would argue that the key here is to read and enjoy the material, but not take it as written in stone or as definitive facts, and remain skeptical at all times. Viewing through a critical lens is essential while using the internet, no matter the information. This is something that we have to teach our students. It's up to us to create awareness. This is our responsibility as educators. So finally, what is technology literacy? Technology literacy is the ability to use, understand, and manage technology in a safe and effective and responsible way. It's a general term that includes the ability to use technology to create, evaluate, and integrate information. Technology literacy is similar to digital and informational technology, but it can be applied to any technological device, not just computers and the internet. Since the pandemic, technology has become the center of our lives. Although we are no longer in the pandemic era, our normal is not what it used to be, and we're all still navigating unfamiliar territory. As we adapt to this new world, where technology is actually one of the most essential components of everyday life, again, considering sometimes we even do our grocery shopping from an app on our smartphone, change and innovation have become constant in today's world. And like any change, sometimes it can be difficult to accept or adapt. People are known to resist change. In the end, it is today's reality, and to survive, technology literacy has become one of the most basic skills needed. So, thank you for listening to me today. I appreciate your time. As always, this has been a great experience. It's been a pleasure. Have a most wonderful rest of the day, and please stay safe wherever you are.